Up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and as you can already know because you can read, I hope, I think, today I'm going to be ranking and reviewing Ween's albums. The band Ween, Gene and Dean, Ween. How did we get to Ween first? Because everything has to qualify under the Zappa Big Note, and you would think with a band like Ween there'd be a lot of Zappa connections, but maybe I'm missing something. The only one I could find is if you go to YouTube, which you're on right now, and you search Gene Ween Zappa Day, there will pop up like a minute and a half acoustic cover of What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body. That's the only connection I could find. I don't think they've ever covered a Zappa song, to the best of my knowledge, which you think they would, but I guess Dean wasn't a big fan of Zappa. But anyways, that's the connection. Gene does a cover of it. So Ween is at its core two members who go by the name Dean Ween and Gene Ween. Their real names are Aaron Freeman, who is Gene, who is the singer, who has an absolutely amazing voice, almost like a chameleon, in that he can sound like so many other people. He can infuse, like if they're doing a song that's like Bowie inspired or Thin Lizzy inspired or Pink Floyd inspired or Motorhead inspired, like his voice, while not exactly maybe sounding like Waters or Bowie or Phil or Lemmy, his cadence, his delivery, just the energy puts in it, like you feel like that's who you're listening to. And then the music that goes with it is they are so good at sort of paying homage or paying tribute or mimicking bands by creating songs that if you did not know that band wasn't the one that sang it, you would think, man, I've never heard that Lost Thin Lizzy number, because that's how good they are. I mean, and that is something they do in their repertoire, is they copy bands, and they don't hide it. They have a song called they have a song called Stroker Ace, which sounds just like Ace of Spades. They put Ace in the title. White Pepper, an entire album, which references the White Album and Sgt. Pepper's, has a bunch of Paul McCartneyisms throughout the album. So they don't hide their influences, but they do them better than any band, I think, does. But then there's Dean Ween on guitar, Mickey Melchiondo, Melchiondo, Mickey Melchiondo. Sorry for mispronouncing that. I don't think I've ever heard his name said. He's the guitar player. He is ridiculous. They have a song called A Tear for Eddie, which was a dedication to Eddie Hazel, the guitar player from Funkadelic. A lot of his guitar playing just has that really intense, screaming, electric, just energy that can't be contained in the notes type vibe that he brings to that. One of his solo songs that the Dean Wiener group has, is that what it's called, the Dean Wiener group? But his solo group, they have a song called it's a Dickie Betts inspired number. But he also has, I think he has said in interviews that his guitar playing is either Eddie Hazel or Dickie Betts, and it's just everything, but that's where his influences are. And he has a fantastic song that kind of sounds like Jessica on one of his solo albums, Mickey, the guitar player, Dean. But anyways, Dean also does a little bit of singing, and Gene live will play some guitar. But yeah, and so why they are Ween, if you've seen Ween live, they've had the same drummer, the same bass player, the same keyboardist for who knows how long. And these are the same people who are on their albums. And so I cannot think of Ween. I think of Ween as this 5-member band that I've seen so many times throughout the year, even though it is at its core just those two people. And then you have Claude Coleman Jr. is the drummer. Glenn McClellan is the keyboardist, and Dave Drywitz. Dave Drywitz is the bass player. So yeah, and they've been with Ween since about 97, I think, about 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. So anyways, yeah. So that's it. My experience with Ween, there's a handful of bands that I've driven great distances to see in my life. Grateful Dead, by far the most. Fish, Mo, Blue Oyster Cult, My Morning Jacket, Radiohead, and Ween. I was very fortunate to be at the Stubbs show in 2000 that the Live from Stubbs is at, when they did the 35-minute Let Me Lick Your, the LMLYP. There was a 35-minute version of that. And during it, at one point, two women got on stage and acted that out for all to see in front of an entire Stubbs audience, while the band slowly walked behind the drum risers and just kept jamming, while one woman literally got down on her knees, lifted up the skirt of the other, and she did what the song asked to do. Then I was also at Stubbs in 2017. Was it that long ago? When they did all five Stallions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. That was pretty special, as was that whole Halloween, post-Halloween run. So yeah, big Ween fan. Love this band. One of the very first boots I ever got that was a non-Grateful Dead boot was the Ween 94 Minneapolis Halloween show, which is ridiculous. And that sort of kicked open the door for me. Like, I had already had their first four albums at that point, I think, right? Chocolate and Cheese had come out. And that was like, oh, this band is way bigger than these albums and much more. And that show just sort of kind of completely changed my mind about what they could do live. And then I started to see them live a lot more regularly at that point. But anyways, yeah, that's it. I think that's all I got to say. 10 albums. I'm going to include Shinola, which is a bunch of studio outtakes and things that never made albums, just because there is a song on that album that will make my top 10 song list. So I want to make sure it gets included, since I have these weird parameters on my lists. One of these top 10 albums I think is a notch below the other 9. 3 of them are strong and have great songs, but either have limitations in the format of the album or just limitations in the way it's sequenced. And then 1 through 6, I would say any of those could be their best album. I have my favorites, but if you told me any of the ones I have as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 were your favorite, I'd be like, of course that is. That is an almost perfect album. Yeah, this discography is great. Even number 10, the one at the bottom, I still listen to and I still enjoy. I do just think it's really good and not great as almost the other 9 are. But yeah, I've rambled on for way too long already. Let's cut to the chase and get to number 10. Here we go. Number 10 is 2007's La Cucaracha, their 9th official studio album, even though there's 10 on this list. It's their last one, the most recent one released back in 2007. So we're going on 15 years, almost to the day, 15 years since this came out. And it's just, I think, it has 1, 2, 3, 5 great songs on here. One of my all-time favorite songs on here. But the rest of the stuff, I think, is just, when I listen to it, I enjoy it, but I don't think any of it sticks with me and lingers with me, or I'm like dying to get back to. It just has a very, despite the existence of My Own Bare Hands, it has a more mature Ween feel, and like they're maybe playing homage to more like safe bands, or more like 70s in like a safer, non-indulgent, druggy way. It just feels like a little more of a careful album than some of their other ones, despite the existence of My Own Bare Hands, which I believe is a Mickey song, a Dean song. But what you got 13 songs, opens up with like an instrumental fiesta, which has some very fun, like fiesta party type sounds. Dun, 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 but it's a good instrumental. But then you get a couple songs that don't really linger with me. Blue Balloon Friends. Then you get a run of 3 songs, 4, 5, and 6, that are fantastic. Object, a slower number. You're just an object to me. Great lyrics. Learning to Love, one of your back porch. Living, learning to love, loving to learn. Bum, bum, bam, 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 like a hoedown type number. And then one of the greatest songs ever, My Own Bare Hands. If you haven't heard this song, when I'm done, go to YouTube, listen to My Own Bare Hands. I'm not going to tell you what the lyrics are, because one of the great joys of hearing this song is when you experience these lyrics for the first time. They are R-rated, 100% R-rated, so don't listen to them around young kids if you don't want your kids to be exposed to some R-rated lyrics. But it is a hard rocker. It is ferocious live. It is a Mickey song, has some of the best lyrics ever. And then you just get a run of songs that I think are just kind of enjoyable when you listen to them, but not too special. The Fruit Man, Spirit Walker, Shaymaker, Sweetheart, Lullaby. Then you get an epic 11-minute Woman and Man, which is very much a early 70s kind of Latin rock, Santana, very Santana jam at the end type vibe. And then Your Party, which is just this cheesy, almost 70s soft rock, great lyrics about attending your party. I had a fine time at your party, or my wife and I were talking about what a good time we had at your party. Just this great, we're getting old and settling down in life type song, which at this point is their last official song they will have put out on a complete studio album. So that would be interesting if Your Party was the last official song they had out. But yeah, I enjoy the album, but it definitely is a notch below the other nine. Number 10, La Cucaracha. Number 9 is their third album, 1992's Pure Guava. This might be somewhat of a shocker, I think, to some people. There are some absolutely great songs on here, ridiculously good songs, but for some reason, the album never really, it doesn't feel like it has a real coherent flow. It just feels a little too, just doesn't click together for me. The sequencing of the songs, I think it opens up with almost the first three songs do not give you energy to compel you through or give you energy that sort of defines what the album is about. Where I think their other albums are composed much better. It does have what I think might be their only hit, right? With Push the Little Daisies on here. When I was in college, I lived with a guy named Gozer. He worked at a bread factory. He went to work at 5 at night. He got up at 3, took a shower, got ready till like 4:30, and he would listen to the radio. And this was, way back 90s. And if Push the Little Daisies got played, which it was played all the time at this point, at one point, he would crank it up as loud as possible and sing the hell out of it because he really liked the fact that they cussed in it and that they played a song with a bad word on the radio. So yeah, he thought that was really cool. But I was sick of that song, even though I have come around and I appreciate it a lot more now. But I just feel like their first album is a remarkably composed shot of adrenaline that has a little bit brown weirdness in it. Their second album is the most Ween thing, Ween ever, Ween, just brown Ween, indulgent, messy, beautiful Ween. This one seems like it kind of tries to go between the two and doesn't really know what it wants to be. And to me, it just, while there are some highs, it's inconsistent. The first three songs I think are part of the problem. While I like them, Little Birdie, Tender Situation, The Stallion Part 3, I don't think they set up the album very well for like whatever's going to happen afterwards. They're just kind of not low energy, but maybe low energy. Big Jim, great song, Big Jim. Then we get Push Little Daisies. Then we get a run of stupid, ridiculous greatness. The going gets tough from the get-go. Reggae Junkie Jew, which has one of the greatest jams ever. It is just this hyper, really just like frenetic with some amazing guitar, amazing beats, and just crazy lyrics. I Play It Off Legit, one of the really cool kind of low-key type things. Pumping for the Man, the best minute and 30 seconds. One of the best minute and 30 seconds of music ever. It's just a great, it's almost like, I feel like it's the cousin to Frank Zappa's Wind Up Working at the Gas Station, but now this is about what it's like to be pumping for the man. It's a 9-mile walk from the office to the pumps. Just a great hyper energy, just really aggressive, upbeat little song. Sarah, nice little slow it down type number. And then the rest of the album is like just kind of all over the place in an inconsistent way, I think. Spring Theme, Flies on My D, I Saw Jeaner Crying in His Sleep, which is a nice little kind of country-ish type, one of those kind of numbers. Touch My Tutor, fantastic number, great live number, just some great riffage in there. And then Morning Glory, which I think is their most boring. I don't know if it's boring, but I think it's their most indulgent and not the most interesting way of their indulgent pieces. And I think it kind of just bogs down the end of the album. Loving You Through It All, Hey Fat Boy, Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy, and then we end with the sort of infamous Poop Ship Destroyer. So yeah, Again, it's probably a little too long. It's almost an hour long, as these first three albums are really long. Almost all their albums are long. Probably you could have trimmed some fat on here and made it a solid 40 minutes, and it might have been a more consistent album. Wouldn't have been as weeny if you put out a 40-minute concise album at this stage. That's for later in their career. But yeah, a lot of people love this album, and I understand. But for me, yeah, number 9, Pure Guava. Number 8, 1996, 12 Golden Country Greats. I think it's their shortest album, like just over 30 minutes. Came out in 96, and it's all country music. It's all country. It is all Golden Country greats, though there are only 10 of them, despite the fact that it's called 12, which is beautiful. But yeah, this is one that starts off with a slow number, I'm Holding You, but I think the slow number just kind of sets up the rest of the album and almost takes the more upbeat numbers like Japanese Cowboy, Piss Up a Rope, Pretty Girl, Mr. Richard Smoker. I think it takes those sort of more upbeat numbers and almost gives them a mellower vibe by starting off with this slower, longer country number that's very committed to the country vibe. And then you realize as you listen to the album, oh, they're sticking with this country vibe the entire way. I think that opening kind of sets the tone. It's like a long opening shot of like a prairie in a movie where that sort of that sets the tone for the rest of the album. But just a really fun album. They have their country notes down perfectly. There's some ballads, there's some upbeat stuff, there's some raunchy stuff and Piss Up a Rope. There's some, sadness in there. Some great lyrics. Again, Japanese Cowboy, Piss Up a Rope, I Don't Want to Leave You on the Farm, Pretty Girl, Powder Blue, Mr. Richard Smoker, Help Me Scrape the Mucus Off My Brain, You Were the Fool. And then it closes with Fluffy, a wonderful little song about a dog and a pig. Pigs are popular in these videos I'm making. Zappa had a pig, Fish had a pig, Mo had a pig, Ween's got a pig. But live, this is a 3.5 minute version of Fluffy. It's a slow ballad type thing. Live, that slow ballad erupts into sort of an epic guitar solo blowout at the end of it that could run like 10 minutes long. This album is only 30, like just under 34 minutes. I think they could have stretched this out, put that guitar solo on at the end, give us one overly indulgent, ridiculous, epic moment. I think that would have at least bumped this album up to number 7, maybe even made it like an almost perfect album if you just had that like release at the end instead of that sort of like just little song about a dog and a pig. So yeah, anyways, but it's really good and it is country, but they know what they're doing, and I think this people could like be convinced that this was a country album if it weren't for the lyrics. But yeah, I like it. It's really good. It's very weeny. So, anyways, yeah, my number 8, 12 Golden Country Greats. Number 7 is 2005's Shinola Volume 1. Sadly, there has not been a Volume 2, but this is a compilation album of a bunch of tracks that didn't make the albums they were recorded for, or there's a couple tracks that were on EPs, and these are shorter versions or remixed, reperformed versions or better sounding versions. So it's this hodgepodge of stuff. And the one thing that maybe limits it from being higher is it feels like a hodgepodge of stuff and it doesn't really have much of a flow, but every song is so friggin' good that like, yeah, it's a great album. Just maybe not perfect as maybe the other 6 are. But yeah, we got stuff from like Chocolate and Cheese, from Quebec, from the Mollusk, from the Pod, from EPs, all on this. The highlight, track number 5, Gabrielle, a Thin Lizzy tribute to Thin Lizzy, that if I had heard this song on the radio and nobody told me that it was a Ween song, I would have gone and tried to find what Thin Lizzy album this song was on. They have it down. Just the cadence, the vibe, the lyrics, just the jam in the middle. It is the best Thin Lizzy song Thin Lizzy never recorded. You got a little Pink Floyd in here, some proggy stuff. In Did You See Me? You got some Michael McDonald type early 80s, that kind of soft rock thing in Boys Club, some of the like sort of the indulgent, breathy singing of Gene in that song. You got a Prince, Monique the Freak, which on the EP it was on is like 10 minutes. This is down to like a 5.5 minute, just full on Prince, like almost like a love sexy symbol era, just raunchy, just sort of jam out number. Yeah, it's just a great album. Opens with Taste Good on the Bun, which I think those are the only lyrics in the album. It's one of those weird, convoluted, like a lot of drum machine. Taste good on the bun. Taste good on the bun. And they just say that over and over again for like 3.5 minutes. Boys Club, I Fell in Love Today, a nice little ballad. Big Fat Fuck, a nice, raunchy Ween number. Gabrielle, Perfection. Did You See Me? Prague, Perfection. How High Can You Fly? Transitions. Israel, which has this weird spoken word part and this cheesy saxophone solo, The Rift, Monique the Freak, and the beautiful Someday to End. Tuesday. Yeah, it's a great, great album. And really, the only thing that's preventing it from being higher is it does feel a little hodgepodgey. And again, you have stuff that sounds like it's from the pod with stuff that sounds like it's from the mollusk. But I think that works in their favor because Ween is so eclectic in that way. But yeah, I think it's just a fun, enjoyable ride. And even if the rest of the stuff was down a tier, Gabrielle is the best 3 minutes and 29 seconds of Ween, maybe ever. Maybe not their best, but gosh, it is up there. Such a great song. But that is number 7, Shinola, Volume 1. Number 6, White Pepper, 2000, came out then. This is where the list starts to get really hard. I think all of these top 6 albums are pretty perfect. This one is by far, I would say, their most polished album. Their most like studio edges are kind of smoothed away. There's still some good weenness in it and some good brown in it every once in a while, but it's more in like not the way it sounds, but more of the lyrics and just like it's almost has like a Steely Dan type vibe, where there is a song on here that is definitely a Steely Dan sort of homage, but there is that where it's so clean and polished and shiny. But if you really pay attention, it's kind of like, oh, okay, right, this is still Ween, but not as much as on other albums. But what it is it seems it's White Pepper, which apparently is a like the White Album from the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper's. It's a combination of that. There are some Paul McCartney's isms in here and some very like 70s AM radio or more friendly FM radio type vibes throughout the whole thing. A little like, you know, Jimmy Buffett meets Copacabana, some Steely Dan, late era Steely Dan or 70s era Steely Dan, some Paul McCartney solo stuff, just generally a softer vibe. Opens up with Exactly Where I'm At, which is a song they do play live. And it starts off with this weird, almost like subdued intro before like the bass and the drums drop in full. Live, it's pretty cool, but I think it sounds so much better in the studio because the way it's mixed and the way the bass and the drums come in so just with so much prominence that it's just like, oh yeah, it's a really nice drop in. And then the end, it's all weird, proggy, twisted, kind of fades out with guitar noises and stuff. A really nice opening track that has a little bit of everything in a like a prog type sense. Flutes of Chi, the only song on here that kind of is forgettable to me. Even if you don't, sounds like a good Paul McCartney solo song. Bananas and Blow, live classic. Your Jimmy Buffett meets Copacabana with Bananas and Blow. You know, you got some like sound like steel drums working in the back. Stroker Ace, your Motorhead, your straight on Motorhead tribute, Ace of Spades. Ice Castles, an instrumental. Back to Bassum, The Grove, a nice sort of proggy guitar jammy type thing. Pandy Fackler, Fat Pandy Fackler, which is your Steely Dan thing. Lots of like cheesy sort of late 70s keyboard sounds. Stay Forever, the amazing Falling Out, underrated Falling Out. I don't think they do that live, or if they, I've never seen it live. And then She's Your Baby, just a nice little kind of sweet little number, sweet little Ween number to end the album on. So yeah, it is a safe listen, but a really, really, really good listen. It's just one of those like if they wanted to play it straight and they, there's a little Ween indulgences, but they wanted to be a more radio friendly, palatable band, they could have done it. And I think this is evidence that they could have done it. And it's a great album. But I like my Ween a lot browner. So that's why it's at number 6, White Pepper. Number 5 is 1994's Chocolate and Cheese. Um, this is an album that, like Chocolate and Cheese, like I visualize, even though the album cover, as you just saw it, it's that belt, that boxing belt, on a otherwise scantily clad woman. Chocolate and cheese reminds me of, like, if you go to like a buffet and there's a bunch of different chocolates and cheeses, and maybe there's some olives, maybe some different kind of like sliced meats thrown in, maybe some fruit. That's kind of what this album is. It's like their fourth album, and their first really, really clean, well produced, well polished, kind of shiny, excellent sounding album. A lot of the brownness has been sort of like produced away, but it is almost a sampler of like everything they do better than anybody else does it. There's a little Philly soul, there's some weird like indulgent country and western ballads, there's some nice little funk jam, there's like all of these different flavors, like a little chocolate, a little cheese, a little fruit, and it all is just fantastic. If there is any fault in the album, it is that it is all just so incredibly polished. It's maybe you want a little more brownness, or it's just so much perfection of all different sorts that it maybe doesn't have quite the flow that other ones do. But really, it's a perfect album. I maybe towards the end it gets a little indulgently wasty, but not in a very indulgently wasty way. But maybe it's just not as strong on the back half as it is the first half. But yeah, no, it's a ridiculous album. Take Me Away, high upbeat, high energy. Live, they kind of stretch this out a little in the middle. It gets really fun. Sometimes they drop in Prince's Kiss in the live versions of this. No, that's in Voodoo Child, that's in Voodoo Lady, which is coming on later. What did I see them drop? Take Me Away. They dropped something in there once. Kiss is in Voodoo Lady. Spinal Meningitis got me down about having spinal meningitis, and that's got me down. Just a great dun 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 dun, nice little tiptoe kind of intro riff with a great guitar solo at the end. Freedom of 76, Philly Soul, Hall and Oates, just more beautiful than just perfect. A perfect slice of that Philadelphia sound. I can't put my finger on it. A really weird, dark, proggy thing that back in like the 90s and 2000s, they would stretch out and have this weird sort of Middle Eastern intro that would go into it. Just a really neat kind of dark, slinky song. A Tear for Eddie, an instrumental dedication to Eddie Hazel, the guitar player from Funkadelic. That is epic. It is great on here, live. Dean stretches it out, even Diener stretches it out a little more. Oh, just a fantastic song. Roses Are Free, Fish has covered this. Another great kind of proggy stomper with some really good lyrics, like some maybe philosophical lyrics, like they're like maybe even the Dead could possibly do this. The kind of lyrics that are like kind of, oh yeah, I think don't, that kind of meaning. Some good stuff here. Baby Bitch, one of their best songs, kind of a sequel to Birthday Boy on an album we haven't discussed yet. Yeah, just a really good sort of acoustic ballad about a woman that Gene wants to forget all about. Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony, about a pony who got hurt. Mr. Would You Please, I think it's his leg. He got hurt. I think the story is Dean was taking acid and he saw a newspaper article about a pony that got hurt, and then they wrote this song. I think there was a newspaper article and acid were involved, but who knows if that's it. Drifter in the Dark, sort of a Roger Miller type acoustic ballad, like that Roger Miller, old like singer-songwriter. He did the theme for Robin Hood, the Disney version. Voodoo Lady, great little funk number, live. Dean gets to really stretch out on his guitar. Joppa Road, Candy, Buenas Tardes Amigo, a 7-minute song that's like your like country and western south of the border type ballad. Buenos Tardes Amigo, hello my old friend. It's a tale about somebody who's exacting revenge. Great song. The HIV song, which has 2 lyrics, AIDS and HIV. So yeah, it's not a comfortable song to sing. We saw them last time I saw them in Austin earlier this year. They played that, the guy I was with was like, yeah, I always have a really good time enjoying this song. It's like, yeah, but it's a short little instrumental other than the fact that they go AIDS and HIV. Yeah, yeah, kind of weird. What Diener was talking about, nice little number. I've seen them open shows with a couple times. And don't shit where you eat, because that's always sound advice. Don't shit where you eat. But yeah, great album. Phenomenal album. So much of this stuff they still do live because they should. Yeah, I love it. Chocolate and Cheese. This is a great starter album. If you're looking to get into Ween, I think this is the best starter album. This is a little sampling of everything. And where you go from here will just take you further down any of these rabbit holes that are opened up on this album. Yeah, I think that makes sense. On to number 4. Number 4 is 1997's The Mollusk. This is the first of ones on this list where I feel really, really, really bad that it's not number 1, because it is a perfect album. Like, there's nothing wrong with this album. It is sequenced perfectly. The songs are all great. There's a little bit of every flavor you want in Ween. There is definitely a nautical theme that runs throughout the entire thing, but it's definitely not a concept album of any sort. Came out a couple days after my birthday. I bought this. It was like, I looked forward to buying this with I think I got birthday money, like a grandma still. I was like in my late 20s. People were still sending me birthday money. I want to say I bought this with birthday money. I was really excited and really enjoyed it. Opens up with this song called I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, which I believe is a cover. But it's like, I'm dancing in the show, like a little like Showtime community theater. I'm dancing in the show tonight type thing, which just kind of, it's a good opening song. It kind of just sets up the mood for the rest of the album. Then we get The Mollusk, nice little, nice little like keyboard floaty sounds, very kind of light with a nice little sort of Irishy, pogsy type prog folky weird jam at the end that is just beautiful. It's a really good video of this that somebody made. I think it might be the official video, but it's with like little Lego people. It's pretty neat. You go YouTube that after this. Polka Dot Tail, a little more of an indulgent number. I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot, just this really hyperactive, almost like a techno type driven song. Live, they really jam out that middle section, and Dean gets a really nice solo. Some great lyrics in this. Mutilated Lips, really fun song to sing. The lyrics in this are so much fun. Mutilated lips on the tip of your sip with, I can never remember them, but another kind of slower, kind of weirder, kind of feeling type number. A nice sort of slow burning one with some fun lyrics. It's Gonna Be All Right. The Golden Eel, a nice proggy guitar heavy one. Cold Blows the Wind. Pink Eye on My Leg, a nice funky weird instrumental. Waving My Dick in the Wind, which is a nice upbeat, like really fun little song. Buckingham Green, an awesome dun 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 dun, awesome opening guitar part, great prog jam at the end, really good energy. Ocean Man, another fun live number, dun dun dun, Ocean Man, really poppy. And then She Wanted to Leave, which is just this nice little ballad about like, I think this pirate kidnaps this girl or something, but she wanted to leave and she leaves him for somebody else. And it just has this like, aw, sad type feel, but it's a really nice ending ballad. And I forgot the Blarney Stone, which is right after Mutilated Lips. But yeah, that has a very Irish, it's called the Blarney Stone, Irish drunken sing-along type song. But yeah, it's a great album. Like, it flows well. The energy is great. So many of these songs are still around live because they're great songs. Some good guitar parts, some proggy parts, some delicate parts. It's all has a very proggy vibe, but they're not really going out there, but just little elements here and there that give every song a little extra something. And it just sounds fantastic. The sounds on this album are wonderful. But yeah, number 4, The Mollusk. Number 3 is their debut album, 1990's God, Ween, Satan, The Oneness. Gosh, does it hurt to put this at number 3. I really wanted this at number 1, but at this point in my life, I realized that the other two I like better, though not by much. This is just for their debut album. It is just a shot of adrenaline from start to finish. There's a couple moments when it gets kind of brown and wasty, kind of well-sequenced moments that like signposts for like, oh, you need a little break. We'll give you like an indulgent 9 minutes of us doing something. More songs. You need a little break. More songs. You need a short little break. So there's 3 points where things get kind of muddy and indulgent. But for the most part, it's all these really short, hard-hitting, almost perfect songs. And I think the sequencing through the first 13 songs in particular, maybe even for the whole album, is perfect. Like it just, you got like a heart, opens up with You Fucked Up, just this awesome, just screaming, angry rager. But then the next song is Tick. There's a tick, about a guy who gets a tick, right? Then you get I'm in the Mood to Move, which is a weird, funky, Ween type kind of weirdness song. Then I Got's a Weasel. Then you get Fat Lenny, which is again them just like them having a really, really good time recording a song. Cold and Wet, Bumblebee, and then those are all some pretty aggressive, kind of weird, funky songs that are very Weenish, leaning on their guitar, leaning on their riffs, leaning on their camaraderie. And then song number 9 is Don't Laugh, I Love You, which is just this really upbeat, breezy pop song that if they had like recorded it properly and not like maybe muddied the lyrics a little or put like a minute or so of like laughing and studio tweak laughter kind of trailing off, I think it could have been a hit. It's a fantastically catchy, upbeat song that I think like a band could do and like could have had a hit with in like maybe not the 90s, maybe in the 90s, who knows? Love songs were popping up that I think could have been a hit at some point. Never Squeal, Up on the Hill, which has this nice like gospel intro part, kind of introduces the whole concept of the boognish. Wayne's Pent Yuggin, another almost heavy metal type number. And then after those first 12 songs, which cover a lot of ground in short, effective, sort of punch in the guts type way, you get the 9-minute Nicole, which is just kind of a slower, kind of pseudo reggae, just kind of the same vamp over and over again, them just riding this thing for like almost 9.5 minutes. And it's just, if it had been put anywhere else on the album, maybe it drags, maybe it's too early, but at this point, it is the perfect sort of towards the end of 1/3, early the 2/3 part of the album. It works perfectly. That's done. We jump back into things like Common Bitch, El Camino, Old Queen Cole, Stacy, The Ridiculous Nan. Lyrics to that are another fantastic set of lyrics just about lovers. I think there's a song in here that we get a call back to another song or we call forward to another song. Oh, Eddie Dingle appears in this. That's right. And he will appear later on. So yeah, hi. My name is Eddie Dingle. I like this girl named Nan. And just great. The middle section, I think in there is very like a composed little middle section. Excellent. Then we get a little like Brownie again. We get Licking the Palm for Guama, Mushroom Festival in Hell, and the 8.5-minute MLLYP, Let Me Lick Your Pee. A Prince Shockadelica meets, what is the other song? I think there's 2 Prince songs that this is sort of a combination of. But yeah, just great, indulgent version riff on Prince. And they stretch it out for a good 8.5 minutes. I saw them do a 35-minute version of this once at Stubbs. Then you get back into some a little more upbeat stuff. But again, the rest of this album is a little more like, gets a little more browner as we go on, like they couldn't contain it. But we get Papa's It, we get Old Man Thunder, we get Birthday Boy, another beautiful sort of melody, acoustic number that they bury under like this weird level of noise. But that's a great song. Blackjack, which is your more indulgent end of the song, only 4.5 minutes, but again, it's sort of like you have Nicole, the MLMYP, and then Blackjack as your sort of brownie indulgent moments throughout the album. And then you end with Squelch the Weasel, Marble Tulip, Juicy Tree, ridiculously great song, and then Puffy Cloud. So just kind of close out the album. It's a long album. It's like 70 minutes long, but the flow is great. The songs are great. I think the average song is like just around 2 minutes long, except for those like indulgent numbers that are spaced throughout the album. Can't believe this is not number 1, but man, the other 2 are so ridiculously good that something had to be number 3. And I feel bad in my heart for putting this there, but just shows that it wasn't all downhill after the debut album, right? So anyways, That's number 3, God, Ween, Satan, The Oneness. Number 2 is 1990, 2003's, wow, Quebec. Ah, this is another perfect album. This one is, in a way, kind of like Chocolate and Cheese in that it really is like a sampling of all kinds of different things. But I think the songwriting is probably stronger. It's a little more varied. There's some little proggy, heavy moments that they lean into a little more that I enjoy. But it's just like it's a perfect album. It's another just perfect album. And I wanted it to be number 1, but I couldn't deny what my favorite is at this point. But there's just nothing wrong with this album. And it kind of does jump from like style to style to style to style to style, but I think it all works. And I think it's almost sequenced perfectly. Opens up with It's Gonna Be a Long Night, another Motorhead, just bang your head rocker. Zoloft, which is one of your more drum machine. Z, it feels like you're taking Zoloft. I mean, 4 meets function. I think they spell Zoloft for half the song, Zoloft, and they talk about how they're feeling good because they're on Zoloft. It feels like you're just kind of floating. It's a floating Zoloft song. Yeah, it works perfectly. Transdermal Celebration, kind of a straightforward prog rocker with some really nice guitar parts. Among His Tribe, which it evokes images of sort of hippie acoustic indulgentness among his tribe, and the song is about that. It feels like a hippie indulgent acoustic, yeah, just kind of, oh, he's among his tribe. But it works so well after the opening 3 songs. So Many People in the Neighborhood, one of their funkier type, so many people in the neighborhood, kind of weird electronic robotic type songs. Tried and True, beautiful little ballad with some great acoustic guitar parts. And then Happy Colored Marbles, just this prog masterpiece, kind of like a part 2 to Roses Are Free, where they just have like really strong lyrics and then like a nice ending jam that gets really heavy and really proggy and just wraps up the song in the best way possible. Hey There Fancy Pants, which is as light and poppy as the title implies. Captain, a long, drawn out, spacey, atmospheric, almost Pink Floyd indulgent type number. Chocolate Town, pop, sweet, beautiful. Just one of those upbeat acoustic numbers that could have been on the radio. Like it just feels like a really good AM radio type song. I Don't Want It, the Fucked Jam, which is an instrumental, which just has this like really stop start weird thing with this. It's not even a jam. It's just like this one idea with this weird like weird keyboard sound that runs through the entire thing. Just messed up, but it feels good. Alkin Road and then the Argus, which together are about 10 minutes long. The Alkin Road is a much more subdued, sort of brownie type, almost fragmented type slower piece that's followed by the Argus, which is this just epic, like 5-minute mini condensed prog masterpiece suite. I always like to consider them as 2 parts, and I think this, if this had been a 10-minute song and Alkin Road had become part of the Argus, I think it would have just worked better and it would have felt more like the Argus would have felt more powerful. Of course, it'd be twice as long, but I do think they work really well. And Alkin Road kind of sets up what the Argus delivers. And then the ending song, If You Could Save Yourself, You'd Save Us All, I think definitely has elements of like Roger Waters, especially in the verses. You just feel a little bit of his sort of like final cut philosophizing kind of seeps into that a little bit. But yeah, it's a neat way to end the album. But yeah, it's just a perfect album. Absolutely love it. Yeah, just no complaints. And there are just so many just epic, perfect songs on here. It's a phenomenal listen. But it's not as good as that last album, the one not on this list yet. So let's get to that. But number 2, Quebec. Number 1 is 1991's The Pod. This is by far the weenest of all the Ween albums. It is the muddiest. It was recorded under much harsher conditions. I think it was on like a 4-track recorder or something. And so there's just a lot of tape manipulation going on. It sounds like they recorded their first album, God, Ween, Satan, and this is all the stuff. These are demos that never made it, or just tapes that were ruined that they couldn't use, or incomplete ideas they never got around to finishing. It just does not feel like it should be an officially released album. But over time, I have come to love this album more and more and more and more. If I had done this list maybe 20 years ago, when would that have been? 2002? Well, maybe if I had done this list after Quebec had been released, right after Quebec had been released, Quebec would have been number one. This probably would have been like 5 or 6. But over the years, I appreciate the brownness more. It to me is sort of their Uncle Meat. It is sort of their magnum opus. It is the album that on the surface, it seems like a mistake and it's way too indulgent. And the sound is definitely by far the roughest of any of their albums. But over time, I have found complete beauty in all of that. And it is the album that pays off the more for me when I listen to it. And while God, Ween, Satan, and Quebec are perfect, this one is perfect with more layers than those, is my argument. 23 songs, so it's a long album. Again, the longest song on here, though, is like 5 minutes and 5 seconds, and that's a really good song. But yeah, that's their longest song. It doesn't even feel that long. But you got opens up with Strap on That Jammy Pack, which is just like with him with Dean just making like this one chord, just with like Gene just doing some lyrics that you can barely hear. Then you get Dr. Rock, which if you've seen Dr. Rock live, this version feels like it's just they messed up somehow in the recording and the tape got all messed up, but they're still trying to hobble together a Dr. Rock. And so it feels almost like, I don't know, there's a complete, almost feels inept at times, but it works. Like it just works. Frank comes next. And then as they always do, and I think the one thing that Ween does well is they can be really sincere, despite the fact that they're jokesters, despite the fact that they're like paying homage to so many bands and pulling sources, pulling inspiration. There's a sincerity to their stuff that, like, I believe Gene every time he sings. And when he's singing about real characters and real people and like writing these songs like Sorry Charlie, you know, you just, it resonates and you feel it. And Sorry Charlie is just one of those perfect sort of like slow acoustic storytelling numbers that Gene writes so incredibly well. We get the Stallion Part 1, which is the best part of the Stallion, if you ask me. You get Pollo Asado, in which they're mimicking ordering food through a drive-through Mexican food restaurant, because they keep ordering like carne asada and pollo asada. And then my favorite part is he goes, how much will that be? He's like, that's $22.95. And they're like, oh, I want to add some pollo asado. He goes, oh, well, that'll be 20. And then they get smaller. That's the changes. And then he gives them more change and he gives them, I don't know. It's funny and it's indulgent and it's a really cool song. Right to the Ways and Rules of the World. Captain Fantasy, nice good live number. Demon Sweat, there's a little David Bowie action in there. Molly, we start to get indulgent and very wasty. Can You Taste the Waste? Yes, at this point in the album, I can completely taste the waste. Don't Sweat It, which is like a Phil Collins In the Air Tonight type homage with a nice little payoff at the end. Awesome Sound, which tries to bring an awesome sound. I got an awesome sound. Yeah, it's just celebrating the ability to make really loud, raucous noise. Laura, Boing, Mononucleosis, which I saw them do live in Austin earlier this year. Oh My Dear Fallen in Love. Sketches of Winkle. Alone, Moving Away. Just a really indulgent, brown, dark, all over the place section of music that occupies pretty much almost the latter half of this album. She Fucks Me, just a Diener song where he's just happy because, as the title says, she'll do me, man. And that's a reason to celebrate. But this slow, burning ballad. Oh, and then you get Pork Roll, Egg, and Cheese. Nice poppy number, upbeat, one of their like upbeat poppy numbers. But again, you got Pork Roll, Egg, and Cheese early on in the album. You got it in the middle of the album. And so it like seems to be this theme that kind of just pops up randomly throughout the album. And it kind of like almost gives the entire album this almost like like waking nightmare fever dream quality, where you're like you're going in and out of sleep because you hear pork roll egg and cheese early in the album, and then it's like you're in and out of all this brownness and all these short bursts of energy and all these weird tape manipulations, and then it pops up again in the middle of the album, and then again things get even weirder and darker and stranger, and then it pops up again at the end, but it's now poppy and bright, and they're celebrating the pork roll egg and cheese on a Kaiser roll. And then the album closes with the Stallion Part 2, because why wouldn't it? Again, it's almost 80 minutes long. It's a completely indulgent, over the top exercise in just pushing every boundary ever. And it doesn't sound that good, but man, is it glorious. Man, is it a glorious, glorious album. That's all I got to say about Ween. Those are my rankings of the albums. They're all good. I'd check any of them out. If you're new to Ween, Chocolate and Cheese, I think, is the best foot in the door album. And from there, if you enjoy that, I think you're pretty safe to explore other areas. That's my recommendation. I am going to tackle the live albums at some point. And I might even do something with all their cool EPs and stuff that they have. Some of the stuff that they've released throughout the year, because there's some really good songs on there, including the Friends EP. The song off the last album, which is number 10, La Cucaracha, they did an EP in which they took Friends and they turned it into sort of a really, really cheesy, over-the-top dance song. And there's like, I think 5 songs on that EP, and they all have a really pretty good energy about them. But yeah, including like this really nice reggae number that's on there. So anyways, that's kind of a good listen to. I might even like that 5-song EP better than I like, no, because doesn't have My Own Bare Hands. But anyways, yeah, so that's it. Let me know what your favorites are. Let me know what I messed up on, what I should revisit, why Pure Guava should be ranked higher, though I don't think it should. You know how it works, people. Comment, subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, go listen to music, people, because that's the point of these videos, is to get people to listen to music. Thank you for watching, and songs in a couple days, and thanks. Peace. Take care.